Oh, yeah, we are here. It is officially Saturday, the 6th of June. Yes, 12 months, 6 months have passed by. It's what happens in this time and age. So today we are doing something very special. We had a submission. I was asked to keep them anonymous, and I will absolutely, because I'm just grateful they're sending me anything to work on in real time, and we are going to edit, okay? How I'm going to basically show you how I give notes on a reader's first page and how I would look at the edit myself if I was editing my own stuff. So it's just a mixture of fun that we're going to have today. If you didn't know, though, we always have a poll. That's right. Every weekend we do a double poll, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday and Sundays. This week's poll that we will talk about at the end of the hour is, what do you focus on most when editing your novels? We have line edits. Basically, all lines must be pretty. Then we have character, behavior, and dialogue, which is ultimately what it is. And then plot logic and story structure. Plot logic and story structure, for anyone out there, what I'm talking about is the actual what must happen and also how it unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of your characters. And then, of course, subtext, themes, and stakes, basically the invisible stuff. But let's get into it. I'm going to say a quick hi to everybody. We got flowers. Whoop, flowers. Hello, hello, lurkers. Yes, we have a good audience today. Starting it off, we have 10 people jumping on. Please check out the poll and pop it on. If you haven't done so already, please like the video. Like the video. All right. So what we're gonna do today is we're just taking 264 words, and we're gonna go through it. And I'm going to show you how I would edit it if it was my stuff, but also how maybe I would look at it for a client or something like that. And this is a viewer submission, so it's anonymous. Don't want to give it away. I don't want to give it away. I feel called out. Are you a lurker? It's all right. I don't mind lurkers. All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to do this. Have a little bit of not fun, by the way. Okay. Oh, if you have any questions, by the way, about what I am doing, my choices, the way I am looking at it, feel free to ask me. You're not going to throw me off. I actually prefer the questions. If you have questions about your own writing, ask me. I'm a developmental editor and writing teacher, so let's make it happen. Happy Oi Mallows, here they come. All right, everybody. So the first thing we do as an editor, oh, what do we got here? Hello, I have not finished a book I could edit yet, but I guess it would be subtext, themes, and stakes. That's still a fantastic choice. The invisible stuff is as important as the stuff the reader sees on the page. And by the way, thanks for commenting and being here. I appreciate it. Oh, look who showed up. What's up, SB? All right, let's get into it. So the first thing I like to do is I just read through it. I just give myself, because I don't want to edit something I haven't read, because maybe I'm editing something out of context. So it's always good to sort of just read through it. Right off the bat, there are things I'm seeing, but we'll get to that. Chris's finger quivered over the trigger. He took aim. With solemn hesitation, he fired the rifle. A tear moistened his cheek. His father, arms crossed, stood casually, disappointed, giving Chris that familiar look. By the way, familiar look is abstract. All right. Chris lowered the rifle, the dark wood stock and dull steel barrel heavy in his grasp. Are you done crying? Bellowed his father. Bellowed. Are you done crying? That's what bellowed means. I'm assuming. You should wear a dress next time. Okay. The sting of his father's judgment quickly calloused over as Chris made his own judgments. Chris's father jerked at the line, drawing the target. What? Jerked at the line, drawing the target towards them. You missed. His father took the weapon from Chris's soft hands. Watch. His father's bulky hand worked the pulley line until the target. All right, well, okay, first of all, lurking. Hey, what's up, Em? First of all, reading out loud shouldn't feel like this. There's a lot of staccato kind of, like, the sentences don't have a natural flow to it. I talk about logical narrative movement all the time, where basically you're allowing elements to build on themselves. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I have plenty of videos on logical narrative movement. But what I'm talking about, I want to finish reading it first, but the thing that's popping out the most is his father's bulky hand worked the pulley line until the target was down range further than where Chris took a shot. There's a lot going on that's not necessarily smooth. It's putting a lot of ideas, and the word choices aren't working together. And when you're line editing, the whole point is to try to make words feel like they connect. And this is sort of his father's bulky hand. All right, so we're describing that. Worked the pulley line, okay? And now until the target was downrange further than where Chris took his shot. Right off the bat, what we could do than that, we're going to get to it, is probably just break it up. And that would be the strongest move. But I got to finish reading it. Hey, what's up, Evgeny? Wow, ghoulish gent, changing the name. Hello there. Have a beautiful evening, everybody. Always a pleasure to see you, buddy. All right. Here it goes. To hit the mark, you need confidence. His father raised the rifle, his breath shallow and controlled. Nice. A man needs confidence. The shout of the weapon echoed. For later. Echoed through Chris's adolescent ears. All right. A shudder ran down him at the blast. All right. The target rode the line towards him. See? Perfecto! Right between the eyes. His father held the target comfortably close to Chris's face. Yeah, great shot. Can we go? What's wrong with you, boy? His father said. Chris stiffened his neck. A couple of guys behind his father joked. Oh, interesting. Nothing. I just would like to go home. Ah, common shooting is fun. Chris assaulted by the image. I'm just marking things to talk about. Right? Chris assaulted by the image, which instilled his position on the... Buried his words under the fear of what would come when he got home. If he embarrassed his father, he dare not say, learning to feel it's not fun. All right, couple things. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to go through and just edit as if nothing else was wrong, but I'm just going to clean up some like, let's say this was perfect, but now I'm just going through and I'm just going to fix the formatting elements, periods, commas, take away any kind of he said, she said kind of stuff, just to sort of clean it up before I go deep into it. Before I do that, though, I do want to do one of these. And the reason I'm going to do that is because this is the original. And we'll just have that set. Make that blue today. Oop. Make that blue. Just so we could go back and look at it. I often have this need to describe some kind of specific gesture, and then when I read it way later, I feel like, why was that important again? Better just let the dialogue flow or something. You know, there is a time and place for specific gestures, but also there is a style in which gestures, like, for example, cinematic writing, you have to... Like I write cinematically, right? So you have to find the place where the specific gestures are needed to tell the narrative and where they are slowing it down. So that's something to think about. Anyway, all right, so let's go. First and foremost, I don't know who follows this rule. I like to follow the rule where if there's an S at the end of the name, and the only reason I do this is because my name is Thomas. So I was always taught to really do this, and it's just stuck with me. So remember, when you're hiring an editor or working with an editor, or you yourself are editing, you're making choices based on your lens in life and the way you approach writing. So people hire me for my specific kind of attention to detail. That doesn't mean my choices are always going to be absolutely correct, but they are choices. It would be the same as if you had Stephen King or Nora Roberts or J.D. Robb coming to you and editing your stuff. The way they approach their writing will influence the way they edit yours. So keep that in mind. So what I'm showing you is my approach, and not necessarily everybody should do this. So please use that sparingly. All right, let's see. Keeping it going. All right, Chris, we're definitely going to fix this. Chris's finger quivered over the thing. I'm going to mark this for later because we'll definitely have to talk about that. All right. I don't like using the word with, but again, we're just with some hesitation. We're going to be talking about this. Can you guys hear that? It's like raining, thunder, and lightning, and it's just trucks moving on. Hey, Sean, welcome to the party, sir. His father's arms crossed. Again, I'm just marking stuff down to talk about it later, but I'm just going through and just cleaning up to casually disappoint. All right, Chris lowered the rifle, the dark wood stock, and dull barrel. Are you going to cry? Bellowed his father. There's a thing that I teach my clients to do, which is just read out dialogue and behavior. So basically what's happening, are you done crying? Bellowed his father. You should wear a dress next time. So that's technically what's happening on the page. So when you do your readbacks, you perform what it is you are suggesting is happening. It will help you ultimately decide if that's exactly what you're looking to do. Because keep in mind, that's like the first thing the father is saying. Are you done crying? You should wear a dress. Right? So keep that. What genre is this? Honestly, I don't know because there's not enough information, but I'm assuming it's like a drama. And ultimately, it is realistic. It's not fiction. Let's just call it fiction. You should wear a dress next. All right. The sting of his father. We'll be talking about this. All right. Over his Chris' judgment. This is where I would erase the S again. Chris's father jerked at the line, drawing the target towards them. I kind of don't know what this means, but that might just be because it's been a long time since I've been in the gun community. You missed. His father took the weapon from Chris's soft hands. Watch. His father's bulky hand. Oh, this whole thing is crazy. All right. Gonna have to break that up. To hit the mark, you need confidence. There needs to be a comma after words. Oh, wait. Period. Because his father raised the rifle. This is a behavior or an action. So it would be a period after the dialogue. If it was, he said, and then blah, 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 then it'd be different. But this is going to be a period. Period. All right. His breath shallow and control. His father raised the rifle. Okay. I'll have to talk about this. All right. The sound of the weapon echoed through Chris's adolescent ears. A shudder ran down him at the blast. A target rode the line toward him. Again, I don't kind of know what this means, but that, again, might just come down to my understanding of the gun world. See, perfect. Right between the eyes. His father, this would be a period, not a comma. And the reason is because this is an action or a behavior. His father held the target uncomfortably close. I might be okay with this, but... All right. Yeah, great shot. Can we go? What's wrong with you, boy? This is a question mark. So it would be his father said or asked. And there would, by the way, there would also be a period here. However, I would actually remove his father said or asked only because there's no reason for it. It's already the rhythm of the dialogue. Like, the kid is not going to say, what's wrong with you, boy? So there's no reason for it. Adolescent years sound... Yes, it does. That's why I have it bold, because we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I promise. All right. Yeah, great shot. Chris stiffened his neck. A couple of guys behind his father joked. I'll talk about why I have that marked in a second. Nothing. I just would like to go home. Ah, common shooting is fun. Chris assaulted. We definitely have to talk about this. All right. Buried his words under the fear of what would come when he got home if he embarrassed his father. I would say there's something going on here too. We got to talk about. All right. He dare not say learning to kill is not fun. This is fine. This is a free indirect discourse. All right. So now that we cleaned up the little things, we got rid of the extra S's on Chris's name. We added some periods, commas, and took away some seds. Let's go over it. All right. First and foremost, remember when you're writing, it must be action. It must be cause and effect. It must be a call and response, right? So something can't happen until something else happens. So the way this reads, and I could be way off on what the intention is, but Chris's finger quivered over the trigger. He took aim. So the way it reads is he's like this, and then he's taking aim, and we can accept that, but the way it reads feels like almost as if he's aiming and his fingers shaking, right? So there's a little the logical narrative movement feels a little off. However, Chris's finger quivered over the trigger as he took aim. That kind of smooths it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, if you want to create more of that fear, right? Maybe it's Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger. And now it has a rhythm of movement. Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger, right? So like that is, now we have the cause and effect sort of. Not that you can't do it the other way. I'm, again, as an editor, as a way I approach writing, that's how my brain would see it, and I would say it feels better and smoother because it goes the opposite way like this. One second, I'm sorry. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger. With is a word. The reason I had this bold is because I try to avoid the word with. I get it out of my just to help me write stronger sentences. Not that you can't use with, but with solemn hesitation. What is you know what I'm saying? It might be stronger to be like let's go inward, right? Target blurred in the distance. Right. I don't know. Oh, the target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye. Right? He fired the rifle. Finger pressed. Trigger on the trigger. Though using trigger twice in a way. All right, so I'm just trying to get. I don't like the with solemn hesitation. It sounds weird, but you could just get right to it. He fired the rifle. A tear. All right. So in sentences, whenever you're going to use, when you're going to add something like from a comma, you want it to fit the movement of what is happening. So he fired the rifle. A tear moistened. First of all, is anyone else going, ooh, moisten? All right. Moisten his cheek. I'm going to talk about that. But he fired the rifle and a tear moistened his cheek. Feel like two very specific things happening and not that it has a cause or effect. He hesitated, then fired, but you also can't use then. Yes, then would be bad. Then would be bad. See, you and me both. Yeah, you can say he hesitated, but this is hesitation. The target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye. He fired the rifle, right? So for me, I would say it might be stronger to show what the hesitation is. However, as a choice, you can absolutely do one of these where he hesitated. You could do that, firing the rifle, though we definitely have to get rid of this. You could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fine. But, worthless. All right. So again, this doesn't fit. He fired a rifle, but you could do this, and now you could do this. I don't get the problem with then, by the way. I use it a lot. Again, Afghani, good sir. You can use then, before, after, you know, next, another. You could do all that. Remember, writing is a creative medium. You could do pretty much anything you want. The reason I'm even suggesting to take away words like with or then or after is while you're learning or trying to hone your author voice, removing those words make you have to find a different way or a stronger approach to that sentence construction. It just improves your writing, which then allows you the opportunity to use words like with and then because you're earning them. The other issue is it also falls into the repetitiveness. It becomes very easy to go, I think there's a lot of was's, right? Was, right? So the target was, right? There's only two here. I think I deleted some, right? So if was becomes a crutch for you, that slows down your writing. It slows down your development as a writer, right? But you can use the word was. If you're using and then, it takes us out of the presence of the experience because people don't think like that, if that makes sense. If it's within the POV of a character, like Chris lowered his rifle and then the dark would start, right? Like, he's not thinking like that. The experience of what the character is going through would be in fluid time. Yes, you can use the word end if it works, like he over and the target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye, right? You can do that. There's nothing wrong with the word end. It's just the idea of calculating time needs to be narratively important. So that was a long-winded way of saying, well, why not use then? That's why. All right, he fired the rifle. A tear moistened his cheek. To me, reading this word is, and again, I'm just assuming, but as an editor, this feels like the author or the writer is trying to find a thesaurus word, right? Like, what is the best, most interesting word I can flex my writing muscles with? And the honest truth is, when you're writing, sometimes, if not always, the most simplistic version of the sentence construction is going to do more for your writing than take away from it. First of all, moistened. But second of all, this is, the writing beforehand is not lyrical. It's not poetic, right? It's not trying to be abstract. It's Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger. The target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye. He fired the rifle, and then it's a tear moistened his cheek, right? Is it supposed to mean that a single tear? Well, that's the thing. It's so abstract. We don't know what it is specifically meant to be, but you can say a tear stung at his eye, rolling down this, I would say face, but fine, we'll keep cheek. A tear stung at his eye, rolling down his cheek. But also, I might think that this becomes a new beat. You know what I'm saying? because we talk about movements. I talk about a movement is that something specific is happening, or we are moving through a specific experience or emotion. So firing the gun, getting the gun to fire is a movement, and then a tear stung at his eye, rolling down his cheek feels like a new movement. Hey, how's it going? I dampened history when it's usually used for food. That is true. That is true. Like food is moist, but the idea that it's a tear moist, I'm gonna stop saying that word. Woo! What was I saying? Oh, yes. All right. So I think this should be its own movement. A tear stung at his eye, rolling down his cheek. All right. Now let's keep it going. Oh, by the way, there's something else that I noticed while I was reading it. So far, we are directly presented to Chris's POV. So again, there is nothing wrong with that sentence. His cheek wet with grief. The problem for me as an editor, what I'm looking at is the word with and the word grief. So if we look at that on the screen, his cheek wet with grief. Okay. All right. The first big thing that's going on with this is grief is abstract, right? So when you don't have to do this all the time, and this is a perfectly fine sentence. But for me, in my mind, what would show grief? What would show the physicality of it? And the reason is because Chris is feeling the grief. But if you write his cheek wet with grief, it's being lyrical, which takes away from the style beforehand. Is there anything wrong with adding a lyrical frill or a little sort of like, hey, let me just touch and play with this a little bit? If your writing is more quote unquote mechanical, and there's nothing wrong with mechanical, no, there is nothing wrong with that. But this falls closer to lyrical than it does to the tone of how it's being written initially. Yes, you may complain about the poll always. Emma, I guess this would be an example of a specific action I sometimes feel the need to describe, and reading it later, I don't get why that needed to be there. That might be, but again, his cheek wet with grief, as that is a fine and dandy sentence. It's just, we don't know what grief is, and this is technically an outside observation, and we're supposed to be in Chris's POV and what he is experiencing, and this is more of what somebody is subjectively placing on the tear, if that makes sense. But a tear stung at his eye is Chris's immersion. It's what he is literally feeling, and rolling down his cheek is what he can experience, and that's sort of why I would go that way. Ciao bello. Hey everyone, I see I have, to be honest, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still have a lot to learn. And the reason is because writing is always evolving. Rules are always changing. But the best advice I can give you or anybody else out there, when it comes to rules, you have to find what you like, what matters to you, because that will define your author's voice. And remember, you can always change your approach. You do not have to stay to something because you did it last week. But the things I'm making choices on are based on my author voice and the way I present it. But you yourself can make those choices. Again, that sentence example, there's nothing wrong with that. It keeps the pace going, keeps the story moving. But at the end of the day, you do have to connect it to what the surrounding style is. And of course, who is experiencing it, the POV. Moist is good, especially when it... It's never good. Hey, Emma. All right, let's keep it going. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So this is firmly in Chris's POV, but there are a lot. His father crosses stood casually disappointed. All right. First and foremost, this again feels abstract. What does casually disappointed mean? Yeah, every reader, the reason it's abstract is because every reader can put casually disappointed into their frame of reference, and it'll be whatever they think it is. So it's removing what it is and putting it in the hands of your reader. Secondly, this is the father's POV. So his father is Chris's POV, arms crossed, stood casually disappointed, giving Chris that familiar look. This stood casually disappointed. The only way it would stay in Chris's POV is if we're assuming Chris is putting the subjective descriptor on his father. So to get around that, if we were to get around that, right? His father. It's also better just just go straight into his father crossed his arms. It's okay to just go directly. All right. What did he have stood? What was it? Oh, arms crossed. Yeah. So his father, just right. His father crossed his arms. Okay. And then you could go internal. You could go indirect. So he stood there. A casual disappointment on his face. All right. His father crossed his arms. I would almost say standing there. All right, and you get a neck. Look. Casual disappointment on his face. Right. So what does this do? It creates the free indirect discourse. We are in Chris's subjective understanding, or his like how he is perceiving the world around him. We don't know if the father is casually disappointed, but we do know Chris has a relationship with his father, and Chris is making that determinative descriptor. His father crossed his arms, standing there, and that look, that casual disappointment on his face, right? Or that look, a casual disappointment on his face, right? Or you could say that look. I like that better. I like the double that, because it feels more like he's thinking, but we're not using he thought, and we're not using italics. We're allowing the narrative to take on the tone and style of Chris himself. Hey, what's up, bro? How's it going, buddy? Shook his head in disappointment. The thing is, by the way, if we wrote, his father shook his head in disappointment. The thing is, how do we know? As Chris, we can only assume. It has to be registered through the perception of Chris. This is a objective presentation. His father shook his head in disappointment. This becomes abstract because how do we know that it is truly disappointment? But if it is through Chris's POV and he is basically grading his father's appearance, then we know it is. So his father shook his head, right? And we have to go internal, right? This becomes, right, as he does every time Chris fails, right? So you have to find ways to stay within the POV. That's probably the most important part about writing. Though I do believe it is possible, and I do it often, and I love when other writers do it. You can switch POVs or quote-unquote head hop if you use transitions. But if it's just this passage is Chris, this is his father, this is Chris, this is his father, then it starts getting a little uncomfortable, and then you're just like, what's going on? So just to be clear, shook his head in disappointment. If Chris was shaking his head, then that could, Chris shook his head in disappointment. Now we have earned the right for a sentence like that, only because it is Chris's POV, and he knows exactly why he is shaking his head. But He doesn't know exactly why his father is shaking his head. However, he can, that look, that casual disappointment on his face, that's Chris's perception of what he thinks the look is. So that's important to keep in mind. But the problem is, there's where is it? His father, bulky hand, worked the pulley. Bulky hand, worked the pulley could arguably be what Chris is noticing. He's defining his father's name until the target was downrange. Okay, so this part, until the target was downrange further than where Chris had shot. Chris cannot know this. Chris cannot see how his father is aiming through the weapon, and he cannot know that his father is aiming down the range further than where Chris took the shot. It's impossible unless Chris is a psychic. But Chris isn't a psychic, so Chris can't know what his father is processing, right? This is another thing. To hit the mark, you need confidence. His father raised the rifle. That Chris can see. His breath shallow and controlled. That Chris can experience. A man needs confidence. All right, the shot. I'm going to go back up in a second. I'm just looking for more shifts. I'll get to that. I want to make sure I mark that because I definitely want to talk about that. Chris assaulted by the... Okay, we'll get there. Okay, so Chris took aim, his father quivering over the trigger. The target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eyes. He fired the rifle. Now, if you notice, the rhythm has changed, and it's smoother, and everything is connecting to itself. And now we move to a new movement. A tear stung at his eye, rolling down his cheek. His father crossed his arms, standing there, and that look, that casual disappointment on his face. Chris lowered the rifle, the dark wood stock and dull steel barrel heavy in his grasp. I would almost do that. Just want to check the spelling here. I, boo 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 boo. Does that work? Yeah, because I think that that's a smoother way of writing it. Is connecting that sort of like whatchamacallit. We're connecting this is technically called exploring. So in logical narrative movement, there's explore, expand, qualify. Explore means that we just go deeper into an element. We're going deeper into the rifle element. What does the rifle look like? Well, it has a dark wood stock and dull steel barrel heavy in his grasp. We're actually exploring and expanding. If we wanted to, we could technically go and now do something with explore. Qualifying is anything that's internal. So if it's Chris lowered the rifle, the heavy gun didn't weigh him down as much as his own disappointment did, right? Like, that's a poor example, but if you go internal, that qualifies the element, so it connects the emotions to what just happened. But with that little fix, that works. Chris lowered the rifle. The dark, I almost right. It's dark wood stock and dull steel barrel heavy in his grasp. You done crying? I would avoid. This should also be a period, but I would just say, are you done crying? I would just do this. That's all that said. That's the clean version. Remember, said is never dead. when you're like, what do I do? Just go with said. This is the thing. Dialogue tags do two things, okay? They create a rhythm and clarify. Clarify could be who is talking. Clarify could clarify the true emotional representation of the words. And clarifying could be if if he's yelling or whatever, right? So his father yelled, but his father bellowed is, "Are you done crying? You should wear a dress, Nick." And that just feels weird, if that makes sense. All right. Hi. All right. So again, if you're never sure what to do, you could even do this, right? His father asked. If you're never sure what to write, like, if you're like, I want to change it up. His father scuffed. His father muttered. His father questioned. Right? Like, I would recommend just going with asked or said. It would probably be better. Was changing out laundry. Sorry for the delay. No problem, sir. I really avoid said and ask. They make me cringe. Said and ask, if it makes you cringe, then go ahead and do as you gotta do. But really, it should be invisible. Are you done crying? His father asks. You should wear a dress next time. Like, his father asks should be the beat. But remember, in this situation, if we were watching a movie, it would be like this. Are you done crying? You should wear a dress next time. So technically, his father is just taking a beat, and then he says, you should wear a dress next time. Are you done crying? I would almost... Are you done crying? His father nudged... or I should say... pushed him. We could just say push Chris shoulder. There we go. All right. Actually, I like that it's one continuity here. Chris's shoulder. Taking a step. What do we got? I'd stick in an action. Yeah, that's what I... Yeah, exactly. Are you done crying? His father pressed Chris's shoulder, taking a step to stop. All right. I almost would actually make this a new beat, but we know is that you should wear a dress next time. I don't understand. I know what he's saying, but it's kind of like Alright, I'll just leave it fine. You should wear a dress next time. I think that's a weak dialogue. That's weak dialogue, but the father's going to call a whambulance. You should. I really don't. I don't like this. I think it is a weak sentence. It could. So if I was going to give a note, it would simply just. It would literally be like, this sentence or this dialogue could be that. This dialogue would be stronger, and then I would do one of these. All right. Whoop. And then I would do a little red. Boop. All right. So this dialogue could be stronger. Let's do this. What's Chris's father's position on failure? And all right, failure to influence his dialogue. And the reason I say that is, if you don't know what positions are when I talk about them on the channel, position is just somebody's belief in something, whether they believe in it a lot or a little. Positions actually can change. That helps character arcs. A position can change somewhat, completely, or not at all. If it doesn't change at all, the character actually doubles down on their belief. If it completely changes, it's not that they go to the exact opposite. So if I go, I love this flavor of soda, and then I completely change, it's not that I love this flavor of soda, it's that I love a new flavor of soda. If it's, I support the Jets, and my completely changed that position, and it's not that I no longer like, oh, well, now I hate the Jets. No, it's maybe I don't like football anymore. It gets replaced. The position gets replaced with something else that has a stronger position. Anyway. All right. The Jets. Jets. J. Okay. All right. This thing of his father's judgment quickly calloused over as Chris made his own. All right. So this is another example of, I feel like the author's just trying to be smart with their words, trying to be clever. And the thing is, everything up to this point doesn't have a lyrical touch to it, and doesn't. It's very much what is happening. Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger. The target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye. He fired the rifle. A tear stung his eye, rolling down his cheek. His father crossed his arms, standing there, and that look, that casual, right? And then out of nowhere, it's the sting of his father's judgment. Quickly calloused over as Chris made his own judgments. When you're a jet, you're on top of the world. The other thing is, it's also abstract. The sting of his father's judgment quickly calloused over. What does that actually mean? And then as Chris made his own judgments, what does that mean? So when you hear somebody say it's abstract, it's just that it's subjectively left up in the air to whatever we want it to be. And in writing, not that you have to be specific, but you do have to connect it to something true, something real. So again, my note for this would be, this is abstract. What does quickly calloused over really mean? And what's interesting is, if you could just answer that question, usually your answer is what you should write. You know what I'm saying? The sting of his father's judgment. Also, ly words. They say don't use ly words. I think you can use ly words. Not a big deal. But this is an example of quickly calloused. It's a weird sentence. It's not necessarily doing anything. So, in reality, the sting of his father's judgment. Just his father's judgment. We already have stung up here, so... his father's judgment. All right. So this is Chris's perspective. This is free indirect discourse. You should wear a dress next time. So his father's words, another judgment added to the growing list of disappointments. We don't need this. This almost has a judgment on itself as well. Chris is technically judging his father, but we could go deeper, right? We could go deeper. His father's words. We could even say just another judgment added to the growing list of disappointments. You could even go... So that is also still free indirect discourse. You can ask questions within the narrative. It's Chris's, right? But you wouldn't say, Chris asked to himself, right? Has his father never messed up? Though you could also go, has he never failed or messed up? You could do that. That's fine as well. That's internal. You could go, Chris thought. You could also do that. That's also fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I like to take that stuff away. I personally don't like the italicized. I use italicized for like emphasis, like how dare you, the dares italicized. But again, that's a choice. That's for my author voice. You have to make these choices to develop your author voice, right? But has he never failed or messed up? I would rather just do the free indirect discourse, because it's to me, the passages, the movement, the prose style is all through a POV, and therefore the narrative should be reflected in that. And this is all one movement, because his father's words, just another judgment added to the growing list of disappointments. Has he never failed or messed up? Grandpa. And again, now we just, by the way, that's what qualifying looks like. If you're using logical narrative movement, we just qualified this. So the the disappointment element, we just went deeper and qualified it. So these are Chris's emotional connections to those ideas. All right, his father jerked at the line, drawing the target towards them. I don't know what this means. That's why I highlighted it. Chris's father jerked. So at the line drawing the target. The line drawing the target towards them. I don't know what that means. All right, so let's see. Let me look it up on the Googles. See if I can find anything. When referring to handguns, drawing, well, means to pull the gun from the holster, pulling or driving the gun straight back towards your own chest, ribcage as it clears the holster rather than pushing. So drawing. So this is, he is technically at the line drawing the target. I don't know what that means. This is a weird sentence for me. Maybe there's a button there that brings in the target. Oh, I see what you're saying. So why would his father jerk? Chris's father jerked at the line drawing the target. Maybe it's a system to. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. It needs to be a little clearer. So we'll work on it. Are they hunting an animal or a pay? I think they're shooting at targets. It's not necessarily clear. Oh wait, yeah, the target blurred. Yeah, all right, in the distance. Yeah, they're shooting at targets. But I don't know if they're in the forest or not. That's actually. Let's see, the forest, crossed arms, standing there. All right. That's actually a great note. So, where are they? And let the environment in their behaviors. This is another note I would send, because right now it feels like, yeah, there's a target, but like, where are they? His father across standing, then casual, low with the thing. Da, 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 da. You should wear a dress. His father's words. Da, da, da. All right, we'll get there. Are they at a range? We don't know. We don't know if they're at a range, right? So, are they at a range or in the forest? It's important to know. I'm assuming they might be at a range, but again, I shouldn't be assuming. The target being pulled back to the shooter. Yeah, I think that's what Sean was saying. So we're gonna do that. Sounds like it's missing a comma too. Maybe I'm wrong. His father jerked at the line. The line, but I think line drawing the target towards them. But it might be. I mean, it could. Or a fairground. Plot twist. They're on a spaceship. I like it. All right. So if this is, by the way, this is probably the best. All right. So I don't understand what jerked means though. Like, is he like, ha? You know, like, right? So that's also a good, because I come from the acting world and producing world, I like to kind of show the behavior too. Like I'll play it out and be like, what is it looking like? What is the physicality of it? But believe it or not, I wish he had a Chris's father. Jerked? I don't. Oh, I think I know what's happening. The father is looking at the results of the target and he's disappointed in it. So he's like, oh, right? So his father. I would just actually. All right, there we go. I think that fixes it. Before you said rifle, I thought they were hunting with a bow and arrow. I think they are hunting with a rifle. I think they're definitely using a rifle. We have a rifle here, and his finger quivered on the trigger. And here's rifle. But that is definitely something, you know. If you're editing and you're not sure, that's always something to take note of as well. Let's see. His father's words, just another judgment. Okay, Chris's father hit a button. Button 2. We could just say to draw. Draw the target back towards them. We don't need he said, but I was going to create another behavior, but you missed. His father took the weapon from Chris's soft hand. Talk about that. I think there's a lever he jerked. Maybe? I'm just going to have his father hit a button. Drawing can mean pulling. That's true. Button 2. Pull the target back. We might actually... I think it makes more physical sense to say pulling the... There we go. Because his father hit a button, then the cause and effect is pulling the target back to them. You missed. Yeah, you know what? Good. Fine. All right. This ain't Shakespeare. It's just writing, right? All right. His father took the weapon from Chris's soft hands. All right. That's better. Thank you, sir. See, a comma did help. That's right. That's right. All right. So here's another example of where I think the writer is just trying to create something else, trying to add something to the sentence. So it's not just his father took the weapon from Chris. However, remember, sometimes the strongest version of a sentence is the simplest version of the sentence. Hello, what's up? Welcome to the show. I'm going to try to go through. We're almost done with the... all right. So his father took the weapon from Chris. Watch. Is fine. This is where we get a little crazy. His father's bulky hand worked the pulley line until the target was... Most of this we can't actually have, but his father... This is just trying to give description to the character. He worked the pulley line? Is he the one? Maybe that's what's happening. Popping in, have been working on non-fic book edits. Well, that still gets you applause because you're doing something. That makes me happy. I'm very happy for you. By the way, there's 16 people in the room. Remember, there is a poll. We will go over it when I'm done with the edit. What do you focus on most when editing your novels? We have line edit. All lines must be pretty. Character behavior and dialogue. Plot, logic, and story. Just to be clear, that means plot, what must happen no matter what, and story, how it unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of your characters. And of course, the invisible stuff, subtext, themes, and stakes, etc. All right, his father worked the pulley until the target was down. Was is a word I would try to, so I'm assuming if he worked the pulley, he is working the pulley. So that means we sort of have to, Chris' father. That's probably why. So now we could just say this. Pull the target back to them. Fine. You missed, he said, tearing it from the locks and shaking his head. Is it clips? Clips. Clamps. Clamps? Is it clips or clamps? Gun target. Art. Attached by clips, clamps. Oh. Oh. Could use either one. I'm gonna use clips. All right. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Okay. His father took the weapon from. His father. You could actually say he worked. Okay. So remember, you don't have to always say his father, his mother, his friend, his blah blah blah. If you established a line of logical narrative movement, you can just continue to play in that logical narrative movement. So his father took the weapon from Chris. Watch. You could even actually connect these. He worked the pulley. Down the range. Farther than where Chris took his shot. Father, the reason father, remember, AR represents distance, UR represents results or effort. So he worked, I ran farther than somebody, right? But if I'm working on, like, say, my thesis, I still have further to go to finish my thesis. You should do more videos like this. If it's something everybody likes, sure, I'm more than happy to do these sort of edit videos. I just don't want them to be, like... If you guys are having fun, I'm excited to do this. But if you guys are like, come on, buddy, let's get to the poll. Can we get to the poll, for Christ's sakes? Sorry, 1 second. All right. Where are we, said the sir. Okay, his father... All right, so basically what I'm doing is I am clarifying that whole... Let's go back down here and just get it real quick. So what is the change? Let's look at the change. I'm breaking it up, basically, into... I'm enjoying this. I've only watched a few of your videos, but think you may be... Oh! Then you know that, the compliments, they hit me good. And I appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you very much. So originally it was his father's bulky hand. Thank you, Sean. And I'm liking the piece that I'm working on. His father's bulky hand worked the pulley line until the target was down. So what I did is I just made it more present. I made it that it's happening and less like it's sort of being told. So one of the things I do tell my clients is if it feels like you're telling someone a story, then you have to adjust things, because there's a difference between, like, hey, my buddy Bobby, he was over there, and he was working the target until he basically got it to them. That feels like someone is telling the story. But you got to remember, Chris is experiencing the story. Chris is witnessing things happen, even in past tense, as it happens. So he worked the pulley line down range, stopping it. I think stopping it farther than where Chris took his shot. Where Chris took his shot? Let's do this. He worked the pulley line down range, stopping it. 1 second. Chris, his. I'm just this is usually the last thing I pay attention to when I'm editing something. I look at the start of sentences. Chris, his. All right, we'll get there. All right, his father took the weapon from Chris' watch. Okay. Of course, he put it further than. All right. To hit the mark, you need confidence. His father raised the rifle. I don't really. Guess we could just leave it. His breath shallow. This I would connect. Raise the rifle. And his breath. Or you could do this. Because, by the way, his breath shallow and control. Grammatically, would have to use the word was. His breath was shallow and controlled, or shallow and controlled. Right? So to kind of like get rid of that, his father raised the rifle and his breath. What I would do is actually create a movement. His father raised the rifle. Eating it. His cheek. His breath. Breath. Shallow and controlled. A man needs. All right, this is a new movement. Okay, so this is the first set. To hit the mark, you need confidence. I would actually almost do this. His father said, just to make it feel like one movement, like one nice smooth movement. So again, the dialogue tags create rhythm and clarity. So this is for rhythm. To hit the mark, you need confidence, his father said, raising the rifle and leaning it on his cheek. All right, now we can go this. Now we can do this. He inhaled, his breath shallow and controlled. Now you might be saying, but Thomas, isn't both dialogue passages his father? And the thing is, you actually can make breaks because they are different movements. In fact, in dialogue itself, there is a if I didn't have these action beats, there's a way you can actually make continuous passages for dialogue. Why do I get the feeling the Chris character is going to eventually kill? It might happen. He inhaled. Anyway, these are two different movements. This is he's making a point. To hit the mark, you need confidence. So now he's raising the rifle, leaning in. And then he inhaled, his breath shallow and controlled. A man needs confidence. I'm a little... since this is just a generic note. So the dialogue to me is one of the weaker areas of the piece, only because the dialogue just feels like, I don't know, it's just a generic bully. Like, are you crying? You should wear a dress next. Like, it's just, and then like, you missed is fine. That's fine. Watch is fine. But then like, to hit the mark, you need confidence. It just feels like a statement and not like, it's not feeling like it's coming from the father, if that makes sense. A man needs confidence. Almost does. I think there's a better way to play with the dialogue. What genre is this book? Technically, it's not a genre, a book. It's a genre. It is just a first page that was sent to me. It was submitted by one of our viewers who gave me the permission to go as hard into editing as I wanted to. That's why it's anonymous, and I'm really grateful that they did that because I love being able to do this. It's good for exercise, for practice. Um, but if I was going to just call it a genre, it might be YA for sure. Not the genre, but it would definitely be Y. Maybe adult. We could probably get away with adult if the violence is there. If Chris ends up killing the father, it's not YA. If the father ends up being abusive, it's definitely adult. Um, Coming of age, definitely. There's a coming of age. It's probably just fiction. You know, I don't know. There's not enough for me to really dictate because like there might be magic in it. We don't know, but it's only one page. Do you really need confidence to hit the mark? I mean, I mean, it can't be shaking, but yeah. I I'm with you. A man needs confidence. To hit the mark, you need confidence. His father said raising it. I don't know. I would probably play with the dialogue if I was the other. All right. The shout of the weapon. Again, this is lyrical. This is outside the purview of what has been established with the writing so far because it should be straightforward. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with straightforward. I write with cinematic and lyrical clarity. So I'm one to talk. I love to sort of allow the prose to be a part of the reading experience. But at the same time, if you're writing, you have to be careful with consistency. If you're going to write transparent prose, which is absolutely a skill unto itself, it's a Brandon Sanderson style. It's most people that have successful books today in the market are writing with transparent prose. Slipping in a lyrical beat just feels like all of this feels like the author's just trying to switch things up, add a little flair, and find the best word they could use. But again, sometimes it's, like why adolescent ears? Like this is an extremely important part about writing through POV. Chris is a child. Would Chris call his own ears adolescent? And that is the point. That's what I'm trying to make sense of as an editor when I'm looking at that. Why would Chris identify the gun's shot as a shout? Maybe he'll identify it as echoing through, but why would he said the shout of the weapon? The shout of the weapon, that seems a little lyrical. It's definitely not the character talking. That is author writing. Chris's adolescent ears, there's nothing wrong with that by itself, but connecting it directly to Chris as a character is not necessarily connecting for me. And then a shudder ran down him at, I guess this is because the gun shot, but it should be a blast and then a shudder ran down him, but we'll talk about it. He wants to throw in that Chris is a teen. Well, yes, the author is throwing in. Yes, absolutely, Afghani. The author is like, I need people to know that he is a teen, but there are other ways to do that. Also, I gotta. There definitely needs to be more interaction with the environment. It just feels like they're kind of hanging out. Where are we? Oh, the shout of the weapon. Okay. Oh. All right. So all I did there was I just made it again more present in Chris's POV and experience. It is happening to him. The weapon went off, so cause and effect. The weapon went off. Its blast. Actually, this should be echoing. Echoing? Is it echoing or echoing? Okay. Echoing off the walls, and into Chris's ears. His whole body shuddered as he went to cover his ears. I would just say as he covered his ears, and then that's qualifying. Too slow to stop the sound. That's his emotional experience. He wasn't able to stop the sound. He was just like, fuck. All right. I'm assuming this is as before, so back towards them. See, perfect, right between the eyes. Again, this just feels like dialogue is being said, but I personally don't feel like the father is talking. I know that the father has said this dialogue, but I just feel like it's missing something. There is definitely something missing, and I'm just contributing to a position. I don't think there's a strong position in the father's points. He's just saying stuff, right? Because it's like what does to hit the mark? You need confidence. Okay, a man needs confidence. See, perfect, right between the eyes. Like anybody could really be saying that. You know what I'm saying? Let's have you know what? The person who owns the gun place. To hit the mark, you need confidence. All right. A man needs confidence. See? Perfect. Right between the eyes. All right, let's say it's the mother. The mother shows up. To hit the mark, you need confidence. A man needs confidence. See? Perfect. Right between. And I could basically make it anybody I want, and it would just be words. The thing is, positions help characters carry something more. Your mom shoots better than that. That would be funny. Greetings, Angel Faye. Afghani, that's great. So this is an example of adding a little flair and flavor. So now there's a position established. We know that the whole family shoots in one way or another, and the father, or in this case now the husband, believes that the mother at least is a quality shot. But because we're now attaching it to maybe you should be wearing a dress or whatever the line was, you should be wearing a dress. We're actually saying that this is an insult, right? So that is how you create character voice, is we're connecting positions. So because he's saying you should be wearing a dress, let's connect that to something deeper. So you shoot worse than your mother. Great suggestion, Afghani. This now connects back to you should be wearing a dress. Because even though he believes his wife shoots good, his son should be shooting better, which then is a position. And it gives the character dimension, bad dimension, but, you know, he's a douche. I finally finished chapter 7. Woo! Woo! Let's keep it going, my friend. He's absolutely... Oh, that is true. I will deny it. I will deny it. I have trouble with the compliments. I appreciate them, and they do fuel me. I will be honest. They help me keep going, but it's hard for me. It's hard for me. I guess there's a chance we find out later that the mother is actually the better shot. That would be really interesting. See, why I'm saying that would be interesting is because if the father is saying, you shoot worse than your mother, he is saying that you should be shooting better than a woman, but the father also doesn't shoot better than the mother. So technically, we are creating a behavior and a position that the father actually is acting on his own self-esteem. He's taking out uh, his lack of capability to shoot a gun better than his wife, and his position is maybe men should be better than a woman, right? Like maybe that's his position. So now he's taking out on his son, and that is writing right there. What Afghani just did is an example of how you connect concepts together. So even though we might never say that, just finding out later that the mother is a better shot, that connects back to now the behavior, and the dialogue is taking on a little bit of shape. That's really good, Afghani. Thank you for that, and that really helped jump off the idea. That was fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly the point. A writer needs to ask questions and connect things like that. That's so good. Hi, Angel. Or he thinks his wife shoots badly, and he says his son is worse. Well, that's the other thing. You could go either way. Honestly, you could go either way. I'll be frank. I kind of like the Afghani position a little bit better, only because, like, the father's disgruntledness coming from his own lack of self-worth. That is something I would find interesting to explore as a writer. Hey, Emma, I believe it. It's thanks to you that I found him so appreciative. Oh. Emma, bringing people together. You shoot worse than my mother. Oh, that's Chris wants to go back home to play his first-person shooter video game. He probably does. Plot twist: his mother is dead because the father is such a bad shot. He shot her by accident. I'm enjoying this because great teaching, learning for those at the start, early stages of their writing journey. Props to whoever gave you permission. Yeah, absolutely props to who gave me positions. I'm very grateful that they did. This whole scene makes me think they are at one of those anti-government compounds and his kid is there visiting his father and is not into the... I mean, I'm all for that. That's definitely... And by the way, coming up with that idea is what writers do, right? Because that's giving the invisible... That's what I was talking about in the choices, the invisible stuff, right? Like what is not going to be shown on the page, but is dictating the choices that we make as a writer for the character. So that's really good. I like that position better too. Oh yeah. Afghani did a good job with that. But Afghani, if you don't know Afghani, or what's your writer's name? Gene. Wait, I have it in the description. Gene Edwardson. And there is a link to his writing, his short stories in the description of the video. Very good stuff. All right. The weapon went off. Its blast echoing off the walls and into Chris's ears. So that was the change. I know I kind of went on a tangent and aside. But I made it more directly into his actual immersion and experience. His whole body shuddered as he covered his ears, too slow to stop the sound. The target rode the line towards them. Fantastic. All right. Yeah, great shot. Can we go? What's wrong with you, boy? Chris stiffened his neck. A couple of guys behind. All right. So the note I would give here is this. So these are kind of like notes I would give, right? Except the notes would be directly like I would go like this, and I would add. You can add like a note. I would just add the note to the side. They wouldn't be written up here like this. I would literally just connect it to the information. Way before this moment, it would also give you an opportunity to add to the environment. Okay. All right. What I've read by Afghani, I like. Yeah, Afghani has really good natural writing skills. All right. This is fine here now, but the reason I highlight it is because it needs to be established earlier. That would be a very... Oh, wait. Did we skip something? Target roll back. See, perfect. Right between the eyes. His father held the target. I'll accept that. There's probably a better way to say this, but At the same time, his father held a target uncomfortably close to Chris's face. Yeah, great shot. There we go. Chris stiffened his neck. A couple guys behind his father joked around themselves. All right, so here's something I definitely want to point out about writing in general, but I think the father is drunk and jerked back the wrong target. I'm assuming. You are welcome, sir. Here's the thing about something like this. A couple guys behind his father joked among themselves. If you're trying to keep the pace moving, this is a perfectly fine line because it gives us just enough information to know what's happening, but we don't need to create the dialogue back and forth. So there's nothing really wrong with that. The only time I would flag this as an editor is if the main characters and the narrative is being influenced by the dialogue specifically. Then you would have to show the dialogue. So if their dialogue is directly influencing and isn't necessarily atmospheric, then you would have to show the dialogue, or I would suggest showing the dialogue. But a couple of guys. What I've read by Emma, I felt was written well. I like the dog training parts more than the love story, but that's me. Well, Emma's a very good author, but that's the thing with romance. Like, still to this day, my favorite comment that I've ever seen somebody write for a 1-star was, "I don't read romance. I don't like romance." And I didn't like the romance in his book 1-star. There was too much romance. The book is romance, How can you not expect romance? I'm paraphrasing. All right, so what did I do here? I created a beat where this is a physical, and then it slowly goes internal, and I'm using free and direct discourse and allowing Chris to have a perspective on what's going on, and then he says, "Nothing, I just would like to go home." Now, the attitude here is good, and we don't need "he said." Common shooting is fun. I don't really know what that means. But all right. Just finished first edit of. I forgot to do my add-in extras on chapter 26, so I will do both. Looks like the move will happen next week. Laptrap will travel me. Wow, I'm really proud of you. You're kicking butt, my friend. I'm really super happy for you. And also, again, and I say it often, but I wish I was there to help you with the move. Maybe their idea of romance is Mr. and Mrs. Smith. That's true. That's true. And even for that, right? Isn't that considered action first? And then it's like an action romance flick. I love that movie. That movie's great. It wasn't a bad romance story. I do like some romance stories. Do you like the kitsy part? I like the kitsy part. Is it really romance if they're trying to... Well, they're not trying to... In fact, I think there's a moment where Brad Pitt is sorry that he shot his gun off while tripping onto the fence, and that was actually a mistake where he fell, and they just used it and added it to the movie, and also it added more dimension to it because he's like, I didn't really want to kill. And also, they're not really trying to kill each other. There's only one moment where they really go at it, and that's when they're actually physically fighting in the house. And even then, it ends up with them being like, "I'm sorry, I love you. I love you." Okay. This is where this whole thing is an issue for me. Chris, assaulted by the image which instilled his position on firearms. I have no idea what that means. It's deeply abstract. And it's another example of the author coming up with what big words or how can I play with this and be creative. And it takes away from Chris's POV experience, because Chris hasn't said anything in this piece that justifies that kind of dialogue or that kind of insight. I'm just doing this because I like to, right? So this is right off the bat, it's outside of who Chris is. So that is a flag, right? Oh, I found a lost project when I reinstalled my Dabble app, and a cozy romance mystery project Ghost Whisperer. Yeah, we love when we find new projects that were hidden. It is their love language. What I read by Richard had some nice moments of suspense and horror. A few years, oh, Richard, I know you. A few years old, a girl discovers and not knowing who were killed by the same person, but in different years. Continue with the help of her friend and detective that is in charge. Well, that sounds fun. That sounds fun, my friend. All right, so let's get this last passage done, and so we can call it. We can get to the poll. And again, if you don't know, we have a poll. We will talk about it when I am finished with this. The poll is very simple, everybody. This week it's, what do you focus on most when editing your novels? We have line edit. All lines must be pretty. Character, behavior, and dialogue. Plot, logic, and story structure. And, of course, subtext, themes, and stakes. All right, let's get to it. Chris, assaulted by the image which instilled his position on firearms, buried his words under the fear. Yeah, all of this is abstract too. Buried his words under the fear of what would come when he got home if he embarrassed his family. He dare not say, learning to kill. This line is good. This is free indirect distance. Get to the polar. A bit of friction makes for warm romance. That's right. All right, so this is how I would probably. I'm just gonna clean it up. I don't think we really need his direct position. This is the other thing about writing. Like when you're writing, I talk about vague but informative. Like sometimes you don't have to directly state things. But I think what's happening here is we're trying to establish, or the author's trying to establish, that Chris doesn't like guns. But I think it's kind of clear already, and it's only the first scene. At the end of the day, the way I would approach Chris not liking guns, but I also think it is more clear in the scene than not. But if Chris doesn't like guns, that should be explored over the first act. Do you know what I'm saying? And then Act 2 should actually put him in a position where he should have to use a gun or not use a gun. And that will define if he changes or not, or stays the same. In fact, the midpoint conflict might be where he uses the gun to save his mother, right? Because of a bear or something that comes into that, whatever. And then Act 3 would be where he chooses to use the gun or chooses not to. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to kind of play with these motifs. But at the end of the day, I don't even think we need this. But maybe we could just say, well, we could actually do this. You're allowed to do this in writing. I don't know if you know that. You're allowed to use compound words. All right. His father wouldn't. Now here we could use the word with, because his father wouldn't agree. He got home if he embarrassed. Maybe it's not necessarily about guns that we should be talking about. It's all the images that buried his words under the feet. This is such a weird thing. Buried his words under the fear of what would come when he got home if he embarrassed his father. All right. This is what I think. Actually, I'm gonna do something as an example. I'm gonna show you something. So imagine I wrote this, right, and the ride home would be. And then maybe we could just have a... All right, so here's something as a lesson, okay? So let's say you're writing. Oh, we got some thoughts. I'll let me go through this first, and then I'll go through the comments. So let's say you're editing your writing, and you find a big chunk like this, right? And in your mind, the idea is it's basically summarizing what unfolded in the chapter, right? It unfolded what is going on, and we're sitting in the emotional truth of what is to come, right? So he missed the target again today, and the ride home would be uncomfortable, painful, waiting for the yelling to begin once they got home. Chris embarrassed his father. That much was true. He never liked guns, though he dare not say learning to kill is not fun. All right, I never liked guns. Never would. Though he dare not say learning to kill is not fun. All right. In reality, in my experience in the writing world, whether it's screenplays or long form narrative, technically you don't need this. Because this can be explored over Act 1. Or, more importantly, maybe we can show the ride home and that it's uncomfortable. Or you can go to the next chapter and they are getting home and the yelling starts. And now in that scene, that chapter, it can come up that it was an uncomfortable ride to start, but now he's getting yelled at. So now we're getting to see the emotion unfold, and you're going to save word count, and it's really not needed. If we're going to see it anyway, if we know they're going to yell, if we know it was uncomfortable, right? That becomes the truth. So we don't need to tell the reader that it's there, right? However, this might work. Though I would just say he embarrassed his father. He embarrassed his father today. He embarrassed his father. Actually, he embarrassed his father. That much was true. He never liked guns. Never liked guns. Would. Oh, he dare not say. He embarrassed his father. That much was true. Chris, okay. So this part is fine because we are learning a little bit more about Chris's position. So remember that like awkward, like this line here, the assault, Chris assaulted by the image, which we don't, what is that? Which instilled his position on firearms. So now we're actually going into what his position is. He embarrassed his father. That much was true. Holding a gun, the shaking of it. Shaking of it in his hands. Chris never liked guns and never would, though he dare not. So holding a gun, doesn't like that. The shaking of it, doesn't like that. So that is starting to build on the position, and you can continue to build on the position over the course of Act 1. And this becomes more of a boom, 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 you know, like a final scene kind of thing. This I want to put over here. Where was that? Sorry, I'm just trying to organize the thoughts a little. All right, so let's look at it now, all right? Chris took aim, his fingers quivering over the trigger, the target blurred in the distance where the cross met his eye. He fired the rifle. A tear stung at his eye, rolling down his cheek. His father crossed his arms, standing there, and that look, that casual disappointment on his face. Chris lowered the rifle, its dark wood stock and dull steel barrel heavy in his grasp. Are you done crying? His father pushed Chris's shoulder, taking a step to stop. You should wear a dress next time. His father's words, just another judgment added to the growing list of disappointments. Has he never failed or messed up? Grandpa probably yelled at him all the time. All right, now. All right. All the time, and now it must be Chris's turn. Chris's father pulled the target back to them. You missed, he said, tearing it from the clips and shaking his head. You shoot worse than your mother. His father took the weapon from Chris. Watch. He worked the pulley line down range, stopping it near the far wall. Of course, he put it farther than Chris's failed shot. To hit the mark, you need confidence, his father said, raising the rifle and leaning it on his cheek. He inhaled, his breath shallow and controlled. A man needs confidence. The weapon went off, its blast echoing off the walls and into Chris's ears. His whole body shuddered as he covered his ears to stop. Oh no, too slow to stop the sound. Yeah, there. The target rode the line back towards them. See? Perfect. Right between the eyes. His father held the target uncomfortably close to Chris's face. Yeah, great shot. Can we go? What's wrong with you, boy? Chris stiffened his neck. A couple guys behind joked among a couple of guys joked among themselves, standing behind his father. A bunch of old men, most missing their teeth, the other half carrying the breath of a bar. Nothing. I just would like to go home. Common shooting is fun. He embarrassed his father, that much was true. Holding a gun, the shaking of it in his hands. Chris never liked guns and never would, though he dare not say. Learning to kill is not fun. Okay. There it is. There it is. We did it. We did a full edit on it. Boom, boom, boom. There's a couple things I think I could talk about, but let's just call it a day with that, and we'll get to the poll. Let's jump on it. What we got? We got words. What I've read by Thomas has been extremely helpful and informative. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. My books are available. Around the houses on that one. Let's make it happen. I'm off to bed. See you later, Angel Faye. Always a pleasure, as always. I'm actually had a new idea for a book today, but very, very general. It seems like it's occupying my mind at the moment. I wonder if I'll start writing it. Well, as you know my thoughts, you should be writing. Write it up. My current story has a very simple arc with a twist. There are lots of ups and downs to get there, though. You know, great stories usually are simple. I mean, bring the ring to Mordor and destroy it. That's the plot of Lord of the Rings. There's subplots, sure, but it's the complications of the characters, their positions, what they're dealing with. It's the failings, the successes. It's all that other stuff that makes a simple plot intriguing, because now you get to play with the characters and stuff. Twists make the whole difference. You gotta do the twist. All right. Chris could dislike guns, have to use a gun against his father to protect his mother from his father killing her. That's true too. That would be an interesting push on Chris's positions. Very good, Ro. Very good. Is this the end of the chapter? I mean, by the way, it's only like 300 and something words. And a chapter can be 300 and something words, believe it or not. It could be 2 pages. There's nothing wrong with that. This was all that was sent to me. This was the scene that was sent to me. And honestly, this could be the opening scene. And then there could be a hard chapter break. And we could have the scene of them driving home. Though I would make a new chapter for them getting home, since that would be a new narrative movement. Oh, don't forget to go over how some sentences start with Chris and others start with his. Is that something you want me to go over? That is something I was thinking. That's why I kind of marked it. But usually when I'm writing, the last thing I pay attention to is this. See how it says Chris, Chris, Chris? This one's fine. But there's too many Chris's in a row for this one. The real fix here is just simply, you could either go lowering his rifle. It's dark. But you still kind of need Chris lowered the rifle. It's dark because that attaches to it. Wait. Chris lowered it. Now we fix that. So the weight pushed back on his arm. All right. His father. So his father, everything is his father, right? I would probably just I would just do this. Another judgment. All right. You should be wearing a dress. So we don't really need his father. So we could just say just another judgment added to the growing list of disappointments. As he never all right. This one actually earns its place because it's, see how far away we are? And we actually solidified this so his father could be there. So we clean that up. His father here could also be here. And then, oh, this is good. And this Chris actually earns its place. So the big deal was the beginning. But as you can see, we cleaned that up. So there you go. We see Chris once at the beginning. Then a tear stung his eye. His father crossed his arms. Fine. The jolt of the gun pushed back on his shoulder. His father crossed his arms. Jolt of the gun had pushed back on his shoulder. There we go. Fixed. The reason you do that is because you want to change up the starting rhythm of your passages. You also want to do that with your chapters. If every chapter is like, Chris did something. Chris did something again. Chris did, right? You want to change that up as well. Yay! What's up? Always a good lesson, Thomas. I enjoyed the live edit. I'm glad you did Malos. If this is definitely something people want me to do again, I know I got 3 people now saying they like it. If this is definitely something you want me to do, I need examples, though. So if you feel comfortable enough and you have my email or you want my email, you know you could always just go to my website and email me and say, hey, I would like to send you a sample, and I'm happy to keep it anonymous, and we could do something like that. It's just, you know, I don't want to have to write like poor examples to do the editing, because, you know, if I would have the answers in my head, you know what I'm saying? I like this because it makes me have to think, you know? Hey, what's up? Good job to whoever sent this. Very brave of you. Very brave, and I'm appreciative that they did. Next scene, Chris is older. His father is long gone, but that's an interesting. There you go. See, that's something. What I like about that suggestion as an idea, and by the way, that's writer's brain doing its work, is that the reader just experienced this beat, and then the next scene is literally he's older, and they're like, oh, and it turns out this scene was a flashback. If that was the case, though, I would actually end this chapter with the dissolve or with the switch to Chris and have adult Chris sit in an emotional beat with what he just experienced with the memory. Maybe he found his father's, and he's standing there and he's holding his father's old gun, and then he puts it underneath the floorboards of the floor, and that is seeding the fact that Chris used that gun to kill his father to protect his mother, and then he hid the father's body. So now that gets now we're getting interested, right? But that's how I personally would suggest. I don't like when a scene is a flashback and then the next scene is the present. It's a little jolty for me, but the idea is awesome, and I would just connect the past into the present just for a beat, and then the next chapter could solely be in the present from there on. But that's a great writer brain idea. Next scene, Chris is on a spaceship playing giant sex. Afghani, fantastic. For a sci-fi writer, I actually like that. All right. Might it help if we knew the father's name? It would definitely help. But the father's... The thing, again, remember, Chris is the POV, and he's younger, so he's probably going to use the father's name a lot. However, in Death of a King, my epic fantasy, Devious does think of Garion as Garion sometimes, but the reason is because Garion is the adopted father. But at the same time, there's no harm, if we go back to the example, there's no harm that, like, you know, what we got? I'm gonna say he's a Daryl. Daryl crossed his arm, standing there, and that look, that casual disappointment on his father's face. Now we know that his name is Daryl. Of course his name is Daryl. So you could do that. I do recommend trying to get character names in there. What I don't recommend is this. If you can help it. Are you done crying, Chris? And then, where is it? See, perfect, right? Oh, Yeah, great shot. Can we go, Daryl? Can we go, Daryl? Don't do that. You don't have to do that. You don't have to put character names in dialogue. The only reason you put character names in dialogue is, again, for emphasis or to get somebody's attention. I slept through it all. If it makes you feel better, Diana, you can rewatch it anytime you want. But also, naps are important for people like us. Singing Klingon. We will do the test of might. Turning into Dolores Oh, God. I didn't know what that movie was about, and I didn't know that it was based because when it came out, I was much younger. I was probably I was probably 18, and I didn't know it was a Stephen King book. Watch it. I had to turn the movie off. It was so hard to watch that movie. Not because it was bad, but because I wasn't expecting what the content was, and I was just like, all right, I need a break. Klingons on the starboard bow, starboard bow, starboard bow. All right, let's get to the poll. What do you focus on most when editing your novels? We have, if you haven't voted yet, you still got time. We have, what do we got? Why isn't it opening? Oh, there we go. What do you focus on most when editing your novels? We have line editing. All lines must be pretty. We have character behavior and dialogue. We have plot, logic, and story structure. And of course, subtext, themes, and stakes, the invisible stuff. I will say this. There are no wrong answers. Whatever your approach is your approach. For me, I actually have an order to these things. And the first thing I do play with is plot, logic, and story structure. Believe it or not, line editing is the last thing I do, but character behavior and dialogue is the second thing I do. So I go plot, logic, story, then I go character behavior and dialogue, then I do subtext, themes, and stakes because that is directly connected to character behavior, dialogue, plot, logic, and story. And then, of course, line edits. All lines must be pretty. That is something I do at the very end. If you don't know what each of those are, I'll tell you real quick because it's important to understand these things. That assumes I got that far in writing. Hey, it's always good to just watch and learn, you know? I'm just saying. It's life, Thomas, but not as we know it. That's funny. Grammar is all I've had experience with except where you've shown an error I made. You know what's interesting about creative writing when it comes to grammar? And I love that you brought this up, actually. Grammar isn't necessarily the most important thing in creative writing. And the reason is because, technically, fragmented sentences are considered poor grammar. But in creative writing, fragmented sentences have impact. The way you use complex sentences, the way you use dangling participles, the way if you're splicing your sentences, all these things could have narrative effect in the presentation of how your characters are experiencing the moment. Fragmented sentences are great for internal. I mean, if we just use this quick, just another judgment added to the list. Has he never failed? Messed up? So this is a fragmented sentence. Right? So has he never failed isn't, but has he never failed? Messed up? Grandpa probably yelled at him all the time. Now it must be Chris's turn. All right, technically it should be my turn, but because it's in third person limited. But you can create a rhythm within your passages by using fragments. So grammar isn't necessarily as important as people think it is when writing creative fiction, because you have to look at your writing through the lens of the presentation and the experience of the characters. So that's just something to think about. Just, I don't know. Thomas, you should make another video like this, but give it a bombastic title like Professional Editor Edits Real Life Manuscript or something along that. Sir, let's get that written down. I mean, where is that? I'm taking that. I'm stealing that. Uno momento. Uno momento, por favor. All right. I'm just putting that in my sheet. Give me a second, everybody. You just gave... That's a great title. I need better titles. I know I do. Trust me, I know I do. I'm just gonna put this here. That was good. Thank you, Afghani. I appreciate that. I love fragments. Yeah, fragmented sentences really help. Would that be internal dialogue? Okay. I think you're talking about this right here. So this is technically considered free indirect discourse, which is just that the narrative is moving through the internal thought process. It's how the character is processing it. However, if I did this, now it must be. I could actually do this. I can now write that because this becomes internal dialogue. The other thing I could do is this. I could do that. And now this is internal dialogue. The way I usually approach dialogue is that if it's internal, I let it move through the free indirect discourse. So there are 3 options for you to ultimately choose how to use internal dialogue. Just remember, internal dialogue would change anything that is self-proclaimed, like Chris to my or I, but this would be my turn. Just keep that in mind. When you're using free indirect discourse, it still has to be written through the narrative's POV, which is if it's third person limited or what have you. I hope that helps. And also, great question. The irony for Ro is I went to a grammar school and my grammar is shite. My grammar sucks. Sometimes you need a dictionary to understand me. That's funny. The Diana dictionary. Diana dictionary. Jeb Hearn had videos like, Jeb, yeah, Jeb, the Jebster, Mr. Epic Fantasy. You might get 160. If I had better titles, I feel like I would. I would be absolutely grateful for the audience growth, but I'm still putting in the passion and the effort into the videos, and I know that the channel's growing, but more importantly, these lives are really what fuels me, and getting to spend the time with everybody in here and seeing it grow and all the voices and the friendships I'm growing is really definitely up there, top notch. Yes, that is what I was talking about. Great. I'm glad it helped. Afghani, you got bomb tag. Afghani does have bomb tag. Afghani has what I call a writer's mind, but he also has really good presentation. And what I mean is his writing style has good presentation. Did you go to school for this, or you saw? I am actually self-taught. Believe it or not, I am a high school dropout. I'm very comfortable with my story. The short version is I dropped out of high school. I was a comic artist. I drew comic books. I did that for about a year. I left that and dedicated my life to the music industry. Did that for 10 years. Retired in 2007-ish. Yeah, 2007-ish. Then from there, I kind of took a break from life and relaxed, enjoyed things. And then I went into comedy, wrote comedy, helped people write comedy, went into acting, and then ultimately screenwriting and acting and producing. I owned a theater. And while I owned the theater, I taught writing. But I've always studied narrative movement. I love film. I'm a cinephile, as one might say. And a lot of what I have learned over the years really came from me studying and loving film and television and translating that to writing in general. But my screenwriting career really, that was like going to college. Because when you have like people that are paying you and you're surrounded by other people who are industry people, you learn a lot. And you learn. I will say this. I think I've talked about this. One of my favorite things I learned is in the I'm trying to be a writer stage. It's my writing. I can't spell. I have dyslexia. My grammar's bad. I'm terrible. And in the we're making money world and being a professional writer, nobody cares about that stuff. Everything goes through an editor, even screenwriting. Like if I handed in a script, somebody else is handling the editing. But also, there's going to be so many rewrites. You do not have to hand in a perfect script or screenplay. You just hand in your first draft and everybody works it out and brainstorms. And that changed the way I approach writing, specifically for my own self-doubts when it comes to my dyslexia and things like that. And that was a big change for me that really helped me embrace writing. So the short version is I am self-taught, but I had a lot of really good mentors, and I was tossed into the screenwriting world. And as far as long-form narrative is, a lot of the people that I work with are also novelists. But I've been doing this for like next year will be 20 years I have been writing. All right. I'm not good at grammar. It's just the only editing experience I've had other than what Thomas has pointed out to me. And that's the thing. When you're working on, not you, Ro, just everybody in general, when you're working on creative writing, remember you do not have to be a Nazi, grammar Nazi. It doesn't have to be perfect grammar. So that is choices that a writer has to make. They have to think between, should I get rid of the fragmented sentence? Should I add, there's a dangling participle, I also like our friendship, my friend. We love being here, learning and laughing along the way. There's much love for you. Always, flowers, always. I don't know. I didn't know you were a comic. Yeah, I drew comic books. That's right. I drew comic books. In fact, my novel, Death of a King, is based on the Gothic comics that I used to work. But I was very good at drawing. I was so good. There was someone from Disney that was interested in me, but I turned it down because I was stupid. But also, they had in their contract, any doodles you do, anything you draw, whether you're working or not, is their intellectual property because you are an asset to them. And I was 18, so I was like, no one's touching my stuff. But anyway, I was very good, but I was also the worst artist in the group of comic book artists that were run at this business. And so what happened was I had a really great opportunity. They got me to do mostly what I would do is story configuration. I would create the narrative movement and write out some of the stories, but also I did a lot of shadowing. Line work is just not fun. but I did learn a lot from that. Sometimes you learn more from doing than going to school. I mean, yeah. Robert Downey Jr. is a dropout. There are a lot of dropouts in this world. And in creative mediums, especially acting or producing or just whatever, even the film industry, I always tell people you're more likely to find success if you get into the industry doing what you don't want to do so you can learn how to do what it is you want to do while meeting and developing relationships. And I believe that wholeheartedly for any industry, including the writing industry. Your community of writers, editors, people that will one day become agents, publishers, meeting the people on the ground level is more powerful for your career than not, than if I went to college. Because college is, sure, there are people you can meet there, but how often, and this is a real question to everybody, how often have you gone to a writing group filled with people you don't know, got their phone numbers, hung out with them, and then asked them about their stuff and didn't make it about your stuff? And that's the issue with a lot of creative industries and communities, is it's usually how can you help me? And what that does is it pushes people away from you because they're like, well, I don't want to work with them, right? So the idea is actually, how do I help you? And then that makes you a part of their circles. And then as they develop and grow, they bring you along. So that's something to think about. Did you own a movie theater? I owned a theater, Thespians. Yeah, we had a 6,200 square foot theater, had 100 seats. The stage was 30 feet by 15. We had a full concession. It was beautiful. It was called the Rose Theater after Shakespeare. And we did lots of plays there. I mostly helped people who wanted to be directors and actors and playwrights and stuff like that have the stage. But we also did like top productions, like worked pieces of literature. Obviously we did Shakespeare. We did some other stuff. I loved that theater. I really did. But we ended up getting rid of it. And I moved to Brooklyn. The better, Laura. You're both amazing. The best, Emma. Let's see. Disney has some... They do have strange rules. They do have strange rules. Cool. Most of my story ideas were once comic book video game ideas. And boom, they turn into something else. And that's the thing. Cinephile. We're going back to yesterday's religious. No, cinephile. I have dyslexia and ADHD and was told I would never be able to write, but I like it, so I do it. My friend, let me tell you something. In fourth grade, the teacher said to somebody, what do you want to do for a living when you grow up? I want to be a fireman. What do you want to do? I want to be a lawyer. What do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. And they pointed to me. I said, I want to be a writer. And she said, in front of the whole class, you should really think about a trade because you can't spell. This is before dyslexia was a thing. Whatever. That hurt and hit me hard as a child. Then in fifth grade, I had a teacher, Mr. Abrams. I will always remember this. We were asked to write poetry. I wrote free verse, right? Everyone else wrote roses are red, violets are blue. Everyone else wrote, everything rhymed. Like, I see you, you see me. And I wrote just emotional free discourse. And everyone laughed at me while I was reading it up on stage. And the teacher stood up and put his arm around my shoulder. And he goes, everybody, he's writing poetry that is very difficult. Poetry isn't always about rhyming. Poetry is having, you're saying something. There's an emotion to it. And that was the first time I felt encouraged to writing. And then ultimately, I actually tell this story in my poetry book, She. But I also don't recommend buying that book. It's the first thing I ever published. However, do not let people discourage you. In fact, I'm going to take away do not. I'm going to say, find your confidence, find your community, find your encouragement, find people that elevate and celebrate you because you deserve to do the thing that you love and you're passionate about. And that, I believe wholeheartedly. Life itself is the greatest teacher. Malos! Let's get some applause with that. I agree. I got as far as Masters of Arts degrees in history. Still fantastic. I've learned more after college than I did in all of those years. The degree just backs up my authority, but still, I could have done the same without it. Still, that's an accomplishment. That's a very... getting through college. Don't worry. I have autism level 2, and I still write regardless. Nothing wrong. Look, we're all... You know what's funny? I had a client... Our first meeting, he goes, before we start, I just want you to know I have autism, whatever it was. And I go, and? He goes, is that going to make it difficult for me to become an actor? And I was like, no. He's like, all right. And I was like, let's do this. All right. Because I consult still, but I was consulting him on how to have a career. Oh, what am I doing? Boop. All right. Thanks to that teacher. Yeah. That teacher. I was like, hey, you fast. That is it. Tommaso. That dead teacher will be eating her words now. Would she be dead? I guess, because I'm 48. And she was in her 20s. She might still be alive, but whatever. You took her advice because you went into the writing trade. Well, it took me... No, I focused it on drawing, thus comic books. And I was like, I still wanted to be in the creative medium, but because I was told I can't write, I always wanted to be a writer. And I focused on drawing, and everything I could do to tell stories, and comics seemed like a way I could tell stories. And since Stan Lee said the artists write the panels, because the Marvel way was the artists write the panels, and then Stan Lee would come in and bubble in. I don't know if they do that still, but the Marvel way is he would write in the dialogue to fit them. Stan Lee would go, it has to be Spider-Man versus Venom, not Venom, Spider-Man, because Venom wasn't created yet. Spider-Man versus Sandman, and it's about a bank robbery. And then the artist would draw up the panels with that in mind. And then Stan Lee would go in and write. So I was like, oh wait, maybe I could just focus on just becoming really good at comic books and whatever. Not necessarily how it works. My high school art teacher sent me on a path of artists. But even as a writer, our color palette are words. Our color palette, more than words, is our emotions. It's the things we have experienced and the lens of our experience. It's not that bad. Oh, that's right, Em. You read my book. To be fair, She was a book I published, and I've talked about it. I had a battle with cancer. After I beat cancer, I wrote that book as sort of like a present to myself because I was like I wanted to write novels and I was still in the film industry at the time, but I really wanted to like write books, and I just went and I found all of the poems I had written over my lifetime, and all the philosophical thoughts, not all, a lot of the philosophical thoughts, and then I put in my song lyrics from my band that was successful, and then I published it, and that was sort of like a gift to myself. Thank you for saying that, though. It's really mean that she said that to a kid. Geez, no one should be a teacher if they tear down. I had I had three amazing teachers in my life. I had Mr. Reaney, he's dead now though. Mr. Abrams, also dead, and Mr. Abrams actually taught my two brothers who are older than me, 8 years and 7 years older than me. He taught both those brothers and me, so that's funny. And then Mr. Smith. I know. You know that's his name. No, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith was a history teacher, and it was 11th grade, and I dropped out after 11th grade. In 11th grade, he was a really good teacher, very fun teacher too. But what's his name? Bush. Jeb Bush showed up. He was running for governor of Florida at the time. And I was in quote unquote special education classes, but I was fighting to get out of it over the course of my high school career, and I eventually did, and I was no longer in them. But it's still something like I was always because I had dyslexia, they were like, you need to be in special education. And it really messed up my education because it messed up my self-esteem, because people would make fun of you and stuff. But anyway, Jeb came in, and we all got to like go up to him and talk to him. And I went up to him and I shook his hand, and I was like, I go, well, when you become governor, will you create programs, or at least advocate for programs that will reorganize the systems within schools for those who absolutely need the special education, and those who are misdiagnosed or pushed into a learning system that wasn't necessarily theirs, because over the years I've seen many people get placed into the wrong classes or fail, or the educational system sometimes doesn't work strongly. And then I had mentioned that, for example, I'm from New York and now I'm in Florida, and they took away a whole bunch of my credits, and then I'm taking the credits again, so now I'm missing out on 11th grade education because half my classes have to be 10th grade education and 9th grade education because they don't have the same credit. Anyway, Jeb says to me, son, you shouldn't talk about things you have no idea about. And I said, good sir, you are a moron. And Mr. Smith pulled me aside. He goes, I just want you to know, I'm giving you 3 A's. And I go, why? He goes, because you stood up. You stood up. That's important. I was like, okay. You, sir, are a moron. Anyway. All right, that's my short story. Okay. Back in those days, college, followed by the corporate world, was the standard. The creative world was not a good path to money. That is true. One of the big arguments and votes that always came up was football and sports versus the art departments, and the art departments always lost. I don't know how it is nowadays. I have not been in school for quite some time. Bloop the beard. I only see 8 likes. That's right. If you haven't done so already, please bloop that beard and bloop that like button. The interaction helps the channel and the videos get seen. That's why I'm a lyricist and not a musician. Fair, my friend, fair. The teacher that encouraged me to go after what I want was Mrs. Tinty. That's a good name, Tinty. I like that name. She died she died a year after I met her. Oh. She always told me to follow my heart, and so on. Well, everything you do that carries that heart forward is definitely keeping her memory alive. Thank you for sharing that. But you're technically a musician, right? Oh, that's true. Well, Ro, are you a singer? Are you a singer? If you sing, I believe you are a musician, because as a vocalist, I can definitely clarify that vocalists are considered musicians. One of our teachers told us that what percent of us would be dead before we reach 21. That was terrifying. I don't know where he went to school, but that is terrifying. Back then, Diana, teachers were cruel. My father used to tell me it was not rare that a teacher or a principal or a vice principal would hit their students in the 40s, 50s, and 60s with rulers. And when I was in Florida, I was in second grade. And when I lived in Ocala, I was in second grade. And the vice principal did pull out a ruler and said, you know, I could hit you with this. And I said, well, my father said if a teacher ever threatened to hit me with a ruler to tell them so he could beat them up. And the vice principal slowly put the ruler back into the drawer and says, your father's the Vietnam vet, right? I go, yes. He's the guy who got blown up and has post-traumatic stress and PTS. And the guy was like, oh, excellent. Well, go back to class. People. I blew the shit out of it. Thank you, Sean. I was in a choir growing up. There you go. Figaro. 8 years. 8 years. What percentage did she say? Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that percentage too, bro. Was going to Vox, but the band thing never happened. Going to Vox, When we returned to the mainland after 4 years, and I was held back. I'm assuming that's Hawaii. I was held back a year because they said I was too immature for the grade. See, that's so crazy about the school system. If I ran for office, I would definitely work to. I prioritize trying to fix because Hawaii. We have to educate, we have to have health, and we have to have wealth. I think those are the 3 areas that need attention for individuals. I think there should be programs that don't necessarily finance you, though I do believe in financing people, but I also believe there should be free education for finance, because the better we understand finance, the stronger we can be as a community and an economy. The smarter we are, the better the education, the more we can advance and figure out new ways to help with health, wealth, and education. So, I would definitely prioritize that. Don't recall, but most of us would have died. Woo! I figured it was Hawaii. Rulers, slippers, and canes. Canes. Damn. By the way, the poll. What do you focus on the most? All right, let me just go over this real quick. Well, it looks like 41% picked plot logic and story structure. Remember, there are no wrong answers. Thanks for 17 votes today. Absolutely appreciate it. We had some killer time today. This was a fun live. Live edits, line edits. That's just doing a lot of cleanup. We're making sense of things. Character behavior and dialogue is understanding the truth and the motivations behind what a character says and doesn't say, does and doesn't do. And of course, plot logic and story structure. That's making sure that the foundational what must happen is present, and also is that plot moving through the emotional experiences and choices of your characters. And of course, subtext, themes, and stakes is if you write a 0 draft or a first draft, what you do is you go through what you wrote and you take what is on the face value, and you don't have to do this for everything that's face value, but you take whatever's on the face value and think of ways to create a conversation, a back and forth on that in that scene, and or take that information and seed it or spread it out throughout the rest of the chapters that are ahead of it. And that actually helps with the invisible stuff. Anyway, with that said, we did good. 41% plot logic and story structure. Anyway, boom. There we go. TJB for president. I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's do it. What's funny is I actually had a page on my website, which is still technically there. It's just there's only a secret way to get to it. But it is TJB for president, but it's the number 4 president. And I once ran I once ran the campaign, and I got 4 people email me and says, I wrote you in." They need life skill courses in school. Yeah, for sure. Like home, etc. Yeah, I had home ec. I don't think they do home ec anymore, but I don't know. But they teach you more than sewing and cooking. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. There needs to be, I think you need to learn you need deductive reasoning is definitely a skill people need to learn. But I also believe that we as a community should be helping one another. And the only way we could do that is if we learn and we understand financial IQ, health, and education. Yeah, I still have no clue. I'm just going to say one thing, and it is confusing, but it took me a long time to learn it, and thanks to my accountant, who I've had for 20 plus years, 26 years actually. In taxes, there are brackets, and basically your whatever you earn in totality creates the bracket, and then your tax deductions lower your placement in those brackets, in or out of those brackets, depending on how much you make. And like that alone would help people understand how money works, and that alone would help them quote unquote take advantage of the system, but also like how do trusts work. And there's a thing people talk about, borrowing money and creating what's called healthy debt, where you take a loan against your assets and you live off of the loan. You live off of the money you're in there because you're paying lower interest rates on a margin loan than you are on, say, a loan for a house. And the reason is because if you have assets that generate a minimum of 100,000, but really the surplus of $1 million is really where you get the advantages starting. But that is an asset you're taking a loan against, whereas if somebody doesn't have assets and they get a loan for a house or a loan for a car, they're actually taking money against stuff they don't have. So that's why you pay higher interest. But yes, taxes and all that stuff, crazy. So true. Yeah, I don't even know how to manage a checkbook. I got a $1 or understand student loans, etc. It's all something you definitely have to. It should be taught to people. By the way, Thomas, I want to let you know that I have a new worst movie I've never seen. I want to know about it. Oh, it used to be Green Lantern. Woo! Yeah, that movie is terrible. Fortunately, taxes in UK are done at source. Otherwise, I'd be whooped. But you're also doing personal taxes. I think the UK also still has business taxes are done a very specific way. Now it's the amazing Digital Circus movie. I had to sit through that, fortunately. My favorite horror film, by the way, is Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal. All right. With that said, we did it. We flew through all of this. We had a nice day. Oh, we got another comment. Before they get those loans, defeats the purpose to teach them after they got. Yeah, well, this is the thing with school, though. If you didn't know, you could actually go to colleges and sit in on the classes and learn. If you don't pay for the college course, you don't get the credit, so you don't get the degree. But I used to do that. I used to go with my brother when he was in college. I would sit in classes, and they'd let me hang out, and then he would do that too. So he had classes, but then he would just go to other people's classes. And you're allowed to learn from your colleges and universities. To be fair, the philosophy of college and university was technically a place of gathering for discussion. It wasn't necessarily always about education first to become a doctor or become, right? Though it had that element to it, but its original purpose was to discuss ideas and to create dialogue. And how does someone from this area and their culture and understandings come here, and this person, and they conform and they work out ideas. So the idea of college and university was something fantastic, but now it is. I think I think Diana said it. Oh no, it was said earlier. It's a product of corporations. It's college is a financial attribute more so than it is an educational one. Anyway, with that, we did 2.5 hours, and I am so tired. Did you just sit in or turn in homework and get graded? I just sat in. I didn't get homework because I wasn't a part of the class. They did not grade it. But I would read the books. I would definitely read the books. So like if I was in class and there was an extra textbook, I would read that. If there wasn't, I would read my brother's. If there wasn't a textbook, I would just listen and take notes. But a lot of stuff that I went into classes for was sort of like psychology, sociology stuff, like things about people and the way people work, and but also like business stuff. I loved business education, like the management of ideas and management of money. So that's really what I just took what I could take. But a lot of the times, my business education came from my family because they own businesses, carpentry mostly, for obvious reasons, for Sicilian. Uh, but my grandfather owned a limousine company, a cab company, several carpentry places. My uncle's was a carpentry. My other aunt was a carpenter. So it was always I had always been around the business world and worked with them and learned that. So that was real good education, more so than if I went to college and paid for it. But it's always good to kind of get involved in things that you want to learn, because even volunteering your time or working for almost nothing, right, just to be around it is worth it. Because especially younger people, if you're not 30, I'm not just talking, I'm just saying in general, if people are not 30 years old and you're 18, like, and you live at home, try to get a job in an industry that you like, even if it's a job you don't want. Like actors, go get a job as a PA. You get on the scene, you get to see what's going on set. Volunteer time for the SAG union, even though you can't join it right away. Like all those things help you. Writers, if you're not 30 and you're not, you don't have a house and you don't have kids and you don't have a marriage, whatever. Like if you're not 30 and you live at home and you have that opportunity, volunteer time. If you're a musician, go to record labels. If you're an author, go to agencies. Go to publishing houses, right? Get involved. It just changes your whole trajectory. Just found out this morning my oldest daughter is going to have surgery, asking for my friend. We are sending all the positive vibes, prayers for success, and obviously love and energy to my friend and to your daughter. I got to look into this. I am a terrible business person, but want to learn. I don't know if they still do it. I'm talking like I'm 48 years old. So I'm talking I was 20 to 25. So long time ago. I agree. I am volunteering at Killer Nashville just so I can be there. Awesome. Yeah, I'm going to give you an applause. You get an applause for that. I love it. Proactiveness. That makes me happy when I hear about that. Activeness. All right, everybody. I didn't do my spiel today, but it is already 2.5 hours. I'm out. I gotta go. I am hungry. What is it? 4:30. Plus, I got a lot of work to get into. Can't believe it's 4:30. Thank you all for staying. 2.5 hours. Jesus. So much love to everybody. I will be here again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Write a book with me series. We are getting into it. And I'm glad you like this. Again, if you want me to keep doing these, send me samples. Just be a page, 300, maybe 400 words. Not more than that. Just a little something. Feel free, if you have my email, just send it to me and just tell me you want me to do it anonymously or not. If you don't have my email, go to my website, makearightleftheere.com, and then you could easily just email me. You can't send files, so email me first, and then I'll respond, and then you can send me a document or something. Other than that, so much love to everybody. I will talk to you tomorrow. Again, thank you very much for interaction and being here, and I really do appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow for the Alien Adventures, and to everybody else, I'm Thomas J. Bellezza. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time.